everybody. Welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, part of the Wide Angle Podium Network. And today we're bringing you a bit of a crossover episode, which we're pretty excited about. For those of you who are new to the show, I'm Molly Herford. I write all about all things cycling related and outdoors, fitness, nutrition, pretty much anything to do with being a consummate athlete, really.
And I'm Peter Glassford. I'm a registered kinesiologist and endurance coach, and we're deep into the cyclocross season already.
I think we're just at the start of it. I don't know how to tell you this.
I don't know. It feels like people got going really early on it.
I mean, that happens since I've been reporting on cyclocross for, I think it's been like 10 years now. Every season, it seems like it's a couple days earlier.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like the fall just for riding my mountain bike and starting to run a bit more and back in the gym. So cross those all off this week. I guess in the last 7 days, I have 2 official strength workouts in, a couple core workouts. We did yoga this morning. And then this past weekend, I got a big fun mountain bike ride in with some friends. And then you and I did a big half marathon, unofficial, on our own. Did a big loop.
Yeah.
On some trails, so off-road half marathon.
Which was my 4th day in 5 days running half marathon distance.
Well, Molly's trying to get ready for this big, fastest known time attempt on an 80K loop. So these are small runs for her, and I have to somehow keep up. So we're trying to get some conditioning, but so far so good. I'm in week 2, and body is adapting. We're gradually exposing here, or rather quickly exposing, but we'll see. But I had a bit of a base, and that's the idea with this podcast, is we're sort of ready to do anything, or at least ready to start training for things, and sort of, if you're well conditioned and moving well, then maybe, a month or 2 or 3 of focus, and, you can go do something wild. Not necessarily that you're going to jump directly into something like an 80K.
Yeah,
run.
Please don't do that. We do not recommend that. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, but that is sort of what we're talking about, and yeah, so let's the
I feel
season.
like that was just you and me like, well, we wouldn't recommend it, but you should probably do it, but don't do it.
I mean, I think that's, you could go jump into like a 5K or something if you're relatively conditioned, right? But,
absolutely.
Yeah. So what else? We're going to Washington, D.C.
Yes. For all of the women listening, I'll be at the Rafa Cycle Club on Wednesday doing a women's social night. So
I didn't know this was a women's only night.
I have told you that a bunch of times.
I don't know why I volunteered to come.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll put it out there. If anyone wants to come down to the Rafa Cycle Club, we'll either hang out there or we'll go somewhere else. If we're not welcome, we'll go down the road. Whatever's down the road. I don't know what's there, but you can show me if you live in DC.
Well, I wanted you to be at the women's night so you could talk all about training for cyclocross, since I know a lot of the women who are coming are very passionate about it. I actually saw one of the women who is planning on coming practicing her bunny hopping of the barriers on Instagram the other day. So you might have to field some technique-specific questions with cyclocross, which is obviously perfect because you just released your cyclocross mounts and dismounts course.
Yes, and that is for the traditional on foot over the barriers, mounts and dismounts, which is very important. Just wrote an email, had a client really big into the bunny hopping. So this is the staying on your bicycle and hopping over these planks that they put on the cyclocross course. And we had the conversation about, it's still important. You still need to get off your bike in cyclocross. Even the people that are really good at doing this still have to get off to run up stairs or on mud or whatever. And yeah, first race was a little tough. There was a lot of forced dismounts for stairs and stuff. And so it's all learning. It's all learning for sure.
Okay, so where can people find this course?
So this is on the Ryan Leach Connection website. I think we have a shorter link that we can say on this is smartathlete.ca/CX course. I think is a quick way to find it. But if you Google Ryan Leach cyclocross, it should come up too.
Unless the Ryan Leach from the U.S., who was the cyclocross collegiate national champion in 2000.
It's definitely funny. It would have been funny to try and find him and get him to be on it or something.
It would have been amazing.
So anyhow, we've talked a lot about that. Everyone knows. Also, we'll link that in the show notes. But today we have, I guess the other thing is if you watch sort of our socials and stuff, there should be from Canadian Cycling Magazine also a bunny hop, like a cyclocross barrier hop video coming out in the next week or 2. So we'll link to that and talk about it on the next shows. But if you just watch at Peter Glassford on Twitter, or if you follow Canadian Cycling Magazine on YouTube, then you should be able to see it and you'll learn how to hop barriers and do bunny hops in your cyclocross.
But
or come to Washington, D.C. tomorrow, and apparently I am going to talk about this.
I did not say you were definitely going to talk about that. Do not
mixed
quote me on
messages.
that. Said it might come
So
up.
we're back to me and the gentleman going down the road for a drink.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that you might be there talking technique.
Okay.
And also that you have your sweet cyclocross mounts and dismounts course out right now. But
Thank you.
Let's dive into today's guest. We have Bill Shieken, who most of you would know from CX Hairs or In the Crosshairs. I'm never really positive what the exact...
I don't know. We should have got his opinion on that.
I think it's In the Crosshairs. I think that's
well,
what we
it's
come
both.
down
I think
on.
that's the website versus CX Hairs is like the short form Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Bill's doing a lot of coverage. He did all the coverage. I don't know if it's all the coverage, but for the Trek mountain bike team. So that's Emily Batty and Ellen Noble were on the Trek Factory team for mountain bike.
Although he was at Rochester Cyclocross this weekend instead of at Mountain Bike Worlds.
That's true.
Speaking of which, both were awesome races. So
yeah, so Bill,
whichever you're into, you should
Bill
go watch
through
the replay.
CX Hairs on YouTube or on his website. Then he does coverage. So there's written content, and there's also now this year it seems like he's doing a lot of video content for each of the cyclocross races.
Yeah, so we talked about kind of where he's come from, what got him into cyclocross, some of his own, learnings from racing and, the clinics that he's done. And we talked about what we talked about last week, which is running in cyclocross. And, just a bunch about his thoughts on the state of the sport. So if you are a cyclocross fan or are considering racing this season, this is definitely a good one to listen to. It kind of gets you up to speed on what the deal with cyclocross is.
Yeah, and I think if you haven't checked out his podcast, CX Hairs, or the Slow Ride podcast as well as another one on our network, this might be a good intro. And if you have come to us from CX Hairs, which is the case for many of you, and thank you for that, you might actually learn a bit about Bill, because I don't think he talks a lot about his background and what he actually does for work, which surprised us both. It's not the video stuff, that's a side project. So I think you might really enjoy just getting to know Bill. He's a pretty interesting guy with a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, so all right, let's dive in. Enjoy the show.
How do you describe yourself, Bill? Like, what do you do?
Ooh, there's a good question.
Get right into it. The hard questions.
Well, I mean, I tried to suss out exactly who you were. I mean, I know who you are, but it seems like sort of like us. You have a few different hats that you wear. So,
oh, for sure. And I, out of college, went to law school. Became an attorney, practiced law for a few years, and then started working in 2000 in Minnesota for Westlaw, which is a legal research group, biggest legal research software out there. All the law books that you see in TV shows and stuff, those are all published by West. So it's a big legal publishing house, and they got bought by Thomson, who merged with Reuters, and they became an even bigger company. And I have been with them for the past 18 years. I started as attorney phone support at the very bottom, and then I met my wife in Minnesota, and she's a veterinarian, and we moved out to Rochester, New York, and the company, Thomson Reuters had a office out there, so I was able to get us moved out there. She did a internship, and then we moved down to DC, and I was able to transfer again, and now I just work for them from my basement, so it's perfect.
I actually didn't realize that you worked a job outside of cycling media, to be honest.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I am officially I don't even know my title. Senior Principal Attorney Editor. I am in charge of the government contracting publications for Thomson Reuters and West. I used to have a cube in an office in downtown DC with a manager who would check seats every day to make sure you were there. She then retired, and my boss was my director, who's in Rochester, New York, who didn't really care where I did my work from as long as my work got done. And now I'm able to work from, ski slopes in Switzerland and watch mountain biking and cover that and still get my work done. So it's pretty ideal. So I can do that job, and then I can also do this other job that has just sort of been created over the years.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so where did cyclocross come in? What year was that?
I think I did my first race in 2003. I moved to DC, never heard of cyclocross, was riding a bike, was riding on the road, was sort of dabbling in that, and had a friend that I actually played ice hockey with who was also into cycling and was like, hey, there's this cyclocross race down in, I believe it was the first one. It was either in Lake Fairfax Park, which is now Cap Cross, which is one of our bigger races in the area, or we also went down to Charlottesville for a race, and both these races had maybe 50 people for the entire day racing. And yeah, I started on my mountain bike and then got a cross bike and got really into it, and then in 2009, I believe, or 8 is when I started the website and started strapping a camera to my head and doing little helmet cam videos, and that's kind of where all of this started.
And that was in cross or in mountain biking that you were strapping a camera to your head?
Cyclocross.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
People are always amazed.
Why did you do it?
Why did I do the camera thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it'd just be sort of cool, and then I put those on. If you look at my very early videos, it was just these helmet cams, and people were like, "How is the camera up so high?" I'm like, "Well, you may have not have seen me, because I am too."
You are a tall man. Yeah.
Yeah, and then from there, it just kind of grew into taking that video and then trying to start analyze it, and that's where Sven-ness and all of that popped up from.
I was just watching a Sven-ness 2 or 3 days ago, and it was the one, maybe the second episode. I don't want to confuse you by saying that, but I think it had a number 2 in it, and it was about the width of the course.
Yeah, that was. Yep, those were the early ones for sure.
And that's a really good one. Like, it's a good topic, but it also just has like some really good footage of like line choice on corners and into climbs and stuff. But yeah, so that was early. That was one of the first things you did.
Yeah, it started out. It started out as just liking to nerd out about the specifics of it. It was when I was trying to figure out racing too, and had done it a couple years and thought I got a hang of it, and started watching all of these races, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, what are these guys doing? And you'd see like everybody in there at the top of the sport, and they're all doing it differently. They're all choosing different lines. They're all handling their bike differently. Well, let's go back and look and see what the most successful way is, or even, and that's what I don't even like saying this is the more successful way. I like saying, hey, let's check out these 2 different ways, and you decide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just playing to different strengths as well, right? Yeah, because what works for Sven may not work for you or I.
Right, but even looking, and that was the thing, with Sven that of course was always just amazing with him, is that he did have, that's where I sort of coined that Sven line. He would do it differently.
Right.
Everybody else would be, you're taught how to take a turn, how to corner in cyclocross, and it's always tape to tape. Outside, you cut off the apex and you go back outside. Well, and then you see him and he's going outside the whole way. You're like, well, this is the best guy in the sport, and he's doing it completely opposite of anything we've ever learned. Why is that? What's the benefit from that?
Mm-hmm. I think what kind of like astounds me though is that in 2009 you started doing video. Like, that was when like blogging was sort of the cool thing. Video hadn't really become
It was clunky.
Well, yeah, it was super clunky.
And to be honest, you're right. And I probably didn't start posting the videos until maybe a year or so. I did start. So In the Crosshairs started then. And how it actually started was just a straight up blog. And what my idea, and again, it was kind of this sort of quest for learning how to do this. But I kept it local. I kept it to all of the people in the Mid-Atlantic who were getting on podiums, and I basically sent them out questionnaires. I was like, hey, I'm covering these races. Here are the things I want to know. And I'd ask them all. That's kind of how the, what'd you have for breakfast question started. I'd ask everybody that. And I'd ask them all these different things. And then I would post, it'd be like the question, and then it'd be 6 different answers from, all different categories of people who got on the podium, and what was the determining moment in the race, what was the hardest feature, how do you attack it, that kind of stuff. And then just compiled all these answers. And that was really what In the Crosshairs was when I started it, was just every week having these, a short little race recap, and then going into these interview questions of everybody answering the same 5 or 6 questions.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever expect it to grow to where it is now, or is it kind of a shock that now it's one of like the number one sources for cyclocross coverage?
I don't even know if that, I don't know, but no, not at all. And to say that the crazy thing is, no, I don't think it's crazy. The thing that I'm proudest of is that if it were just me and I was in my 20s, I wouldn't need this other job. That other job has health care benefits, and for me and my family and other, I have a pension with that job, so it's like I'm not going to quit it, right? But at the same time, if I wanted to live on what I make from In the Crosshairs, what I make from working, in mountain biking, I could do it. And that is something that I'm proud of, because we hear a lot. I mean, Molly and Peter, you both know personally that trying to make a living off of athletics and is not easy. It's really hard, and especially the cycling industry is insane. Yeah.
And I saw 3.2 thousand subscribers on YouTube. Those aren't views, but like people have subscribed to the CX Harris channel, which seems that seems big to me. That's
nice too, because that is stuff that's original content for me. Not to say that Sven-ness isn't original content, but Sven-ness is me sort of compiling somebody else's footage, and those are all on Vimeo. Just because, I mean, to be perfectly honest, at the time I thought there was less of a chance of me getting a copyright flag on Vimeo than there was on YouTube, so that's why they all sit over there. That whole part of it is just this weird looking the other way by the people who actually own those rights, I think, at this point, but which is fine by me. But on the other side, it's quasi legal, so I can't go and say, hey, you want to sponsor a Sven-ness video, because no one can pay for it, because it may get flagged at some point and then I have to give them their money back. Mm-hmm. But no, I think the growth of the YouTube channel has been cool, and the stuff that I'm doing now for it, this Crosshairs Television, just trying to cover these races that might not get any video coverage of it, has been rewarding. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's a change this year, right? Like, I saw you did the first race, which it was down your way, right? Was it Roanoke?
Roanoke, Virginia, which is southwestern Virginia, so about a 4-hour drive or so for us from DC. Yeah, and I started doing them a little bit last year, just sort of figuring out what I wanted to do. The first ones I actually started out in that Sven-ness style, where it would be like, highlight and then go to the black screen with text and then highlight. And I was like, well, let me just try to do a voiceover on it, see how it goes. And I think those flow a little better. So that's kind of what I'm sticking with for this year.
So what is your setup like? How are you putting this together? Like, is it, because that's the struggle, right? With all these coverages, that's always the complaint, or the thing is that, we can do it with this production and then the feed doesn't work or whatever.
That's my sales pitch to race organizers to have me out and produce this for them, is that if you want to do a live stream of your event, you're looking at easily $30,000 to have something that's half decent. Up from there, that's like bare bones, and it's gonna be live. And let me ask you this question. Where are most people? We're a participatory sport in cyclocross. So where are most people on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon while the race is going on, a C2 race, and that they're not at? Where are those people usually?
Probably on their bikes somewhere else.
Bikes or some sort of like baseball, hockey, whatever type of practice with their kids.
Having a live stream it sounds awesome, and it's something that, if it existed and you had replays, that'd be great. But other than nationals, like Cyclocross Nationals is the one live stream that you're pretty much guaranteed, if the people who like the sport and are invested in the sport aren't at the event, they're going to be watching the live stream. That's the one. That's the one that people will tune in for. Other than that, what I want to offer people is more like Wide World of Sports, where everything used to be tape delayed. Miracle on Ice, the U.S. winning the gold medal in hockey. It was not live. It was not on live TV. It was tape delayed. It was a couple days after it before anybody even saw it. And it's still like those greatest sports moments. So live doesn't necessarily have to be the end all here. We can do more of a tape delay, and that's kind of where I'm going with this, is that I can give you a 20-minute, or even 12-minute summary of the whole race, get most of the action in there, and get it out to people in a decently produced product.
I like that. To me, so that made me think, like, I'm one of those people who read the last line of the last Harry Potter book before I started reading the whole book. And I still loved the book. Like, I don't care if I know who won the race. I still want to see the race if I heard it was like a, really good one to watch.
Yeah, exactly. And to answer your question, Peter, it's me. I would love it. I have a couple races where I will be hiring a second person to shoot with me, but right now it's just me and running around the course and trying to grab it all. The funny thing is, like, after spending a summer working with Trek and the Cliff Pro team, covering them on mountain bike courses in the Alps and stuff, coming back to cyclocross was pretty easy. It's like, oh, this track is actually a lot shorter and I can cover it all.
Right. And so you're using like a handheld or like a combo of that and some GoPros and stuff, or what do you
No,
use?
it's just basically I shoot all Sony bodies. I have a cinema lens on my one main camera that I use, which I can track really well on. And then on top of that, I have a smaller camera that I'll put onto a gimbal, and you'll see me like an idiot just sort of running course side, trying to get these nice tracking shots of the field as they go by.
Nice. So you mentioned doing some mountain bike stuff, which has been I would imagine, a pretty fun gig for the last 2 years now.
This was year 3. Yeah.
Year 3. Okay. And then you're working with the Cliff Pro team as well. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep. So, up until, this might have been the end of that gig, at least for World Cup. I think they aren't doing any more overseas racing for that women's team, which is really sad.
I saw that announcement.
They were one of the longest running teams out there, and then to have a women's team that was going for 18 seasons, I believe, for racing World Cups is an amazing run, and that's the kind of stuff that really needs to be celebrated after this announcement, which got to be a little confusing. I think they're still going to race domestically, but not the World Cup. So yeah, but I did do video coverage for them, which if you go back onto the Cliff Pro team Instagram feed, and I think they also have a YouTube channel, you can see the little race recaps that I shot for them. And then my big client there is the Trek Factory Racing.
Cool. So do you have predictions? The big races are coming up, I think, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. For the World Championships, right? Oh,
you're talking mountain biking. I was really confused. It's like, Peter, the World Cup is...
I'm going chalk on these, at least for the elite races, especially with them being in Switzerland. I think it's going to be really hard to bet against Nino winning again, and then also Yolanda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about for podium? Any surprise people you expect to see, or you're like thinking you might see on the podium?
I think for the men, it's going well for both, but for the men, it's going to be. There are a lot of guys up there that, this has been a really fun year to follow for the men as well. I know a theme that has been going around that I am a huge proponent of is that the women's racing, both in cyclocross and in mountain biking, has been a lot more exciting than the men's. And part of that, one factor in that, is that there have been these dominating athletes on the men's side, be it, Mathieu van der Poel in cyclocross and Nino Schurter in mountain biking. And every once in a while they'd get their foil. Van der Poel will have Wout, and in the past Schurter had Absalon. Mm-hmm. But this year, at least on the mountain biking side, Nino, still amazing, still won the World Cup, yet it was a fight for him every week. And that was really fun to see. And you had guys like Van der Poel coming over. I mean, that just energized that whole field. And you got Sam Gaze winning that first race of the year, Anton Cooper, New Zealand producing all of these amazing mountain bikers coming after Nino. You got Maxi Murat, who's always up there. So I think there's this whole group behind him that might be fighting for the rest of the podium. If Van der Poel stays on his bike, I'll bet he'll be up there.
Yeah, for sure. And then
women's side, would love to see Emily Batty up there challenging. I mean, she's worked so hard, off year last year, and this year just really came back strong and is just putting in some really great races. So that's good to see. It'd be, if she got on that top step, I think that would just be her career made for her, for sure. Having never won a World Cup, but getting so close. But I think she's going to be up there. And then, I think that field is so strong. It's tough to pick people out of it. I don't know if you saw that Lebresse race, but that is like one of the greatest cycling races of all time.
Mm-hmm. Just this past one.
Yeah, just this past one with Anneke Langvid out there fighting
Four
it
back.
Of them. There's, Yolanda double flatting and still winning the race. I mean, just incredible.
Yeah, it was. I showed Molly was traveling and working over that weekend, so I showed her just a picture when she got in. I was like, if you can't watch the race, this picture basically summarized it. And it was three of them wide, I think probably, and then Langbed was maybe trailing behind, but like in frame. And I was like, this was essentially the race. Three wide with one trailing, and it just kept switching and back and forth and everything else. But like every corner, like really tight. It was so exciting.
Yeah, as a rule, Peter does not, I don't really watch that many races, especially not on the weekend. I'll usually watch them afterwards. And that one, Peter was actually texting me to be like, you have to watch this, which is very different for either of us, I'd say.
My favorite thing with those, and you guys know this because I'm sure the same thing has happened when you're sort of in the thick of it, where you get people texting you, what just happened there? And you're like, you have a better view than I do.
Yeah, right.
You're at home watching on TV. I'm sitting here lying in the dirt somewhere on the track.
Yeah, you're I can really only hear cheering. I can't really tell you what's actually happening. Someone's speaking in Flemish. I don't know. While you've been over there, have you picked up any Flemish or French or any of that stuff, or are you still struggling?
No, not at all. and it bums me out a little bit because I wish it were harder, but the bottom line is that as North Americans, we are spoiled to no end. Mm-hmm. And just even UK. I mean, English speakers have it the best in the world because you can just go, if somebody greets you, if it's in German or French, well, French is sort of every once in a while, but and you just say hello back to them, all of a sudden they just switch to English, and then you're speaking English. Rarely do you run into somebody that doesn't know some English.
Yeah, I think even worse is when I made the attempt in Europe and I'm bonjour. They just immediately switch to English anyway because they're yeah, we know. And I'm no, I want to try, but they're not having it. We don't want to waste our time on this.
Yeah, I think the funny thing is too is that it's not. I have to say for me, I have to say the hello part because I don't think I necessarily look American. Like, I can pass for Eastern European of some sort, so it's always sort of questionable.
Yeah, I could see that actually. Like I could see you fitting in like pretty solidly in a cyclocross audience where they wouldn't even like look twice. Like, yeah. All right, let's shift gears to wide angle podium. So, when did you come? How long ago was it that you came on as like one of the partners in wide angle podium?
Spencer approached me just about being on the. He was just starting, and it was basically just. This is funny because it seems like like I'm joking, but I am truly like not remembering Slow Ride Podcast. The Slow Ride Podcast, and then he asked me, so I was kind of the second show on the network. The network was basically those two shows, and then it started growing from there. And it was pretty quick when he came to me with the idea that I wanted to be a part of it on more than just a show on the roster. And yeah, I'd say within the first year we were already sort of forming that partnership and figuring out the investment from everybody into it. And after year one we were sort of full partners on. Well, he's actually a little more of a partner. He owns the majority of it.
He's controlling stake.
That's it.
And I saw the network as a whole I think has gone over the million.
I think we're at, that was, Spencer was giving me a hard time because I was talking about almost getting to 1 million. And he was like, well, actually we're about 1.5 million. He's like, we're right up on 1.5 million downloads network wide, which is just amazing. It's great. I love it. It's such a fun thing to be able to see that as a success and see it as something that continues to roll on, with successful shows. And the thing that people need to know, and this is a nod to you two as well, is that it's not easy doing this every week or even every other week. It's fun for about the first year or so, and you get really excited about it, and then after that, it's tough. And finding guests and for you guys finding topics is not easy. And we see it even on the network. You see the shows that have sort of gone dormant or have even gone away. Mm-hmm. And that's okay because the base of it between the Slow Ride Podcast and Bike Shop CX, Consummate Athlete, and Crosshairs Radio, that's kind of the foundation. And those shows continue to grow and continue to really drive the network, which makes me really proud. I think we've done a good job choosing the best out there.
What's coming up next for Wide Angle Podium? Anything exciting on the horizon?
Well, we have our donor drive, which is just finishing up. So if you are listening to this and you go to wideanglepodium.com, there's a lot of cool stuff that you can get for a minimal donation. We have our splash-proof phone pouches. That's something new this year. There's a lot of fidget spinners left. We got cool buttons out there. $50 a month, and you will have Molly and Peter shouting you out on their show. A personal shout out.
I didn't even realize that was an option. Like someone could say, like, I want you to say this thing. It could be anything.
Yeah.
Right.
So
some propaganda.
That's really what it is. And I honestly, it's the type of here's the thing. The GoFundMe's out there that you see all the time. Some of them just I don't know if I want to support somebody's racing season or something. I think that it's like you either need to make it or break it on some of these things, sink or swim. But this is almost like you're buying the product here. We're going to deliver. You're going to get your product. I know I was talking to somebody else. There are 4 different podcasts that I support through Patreon, and give money to every month. So it's kind of just giving back to it. We're giving you all this free content. If you give us a little back, then we'll continue to do that.
I think that's awesome. If someone was going to start with the CX Hairs podcast, is there like the episode? Like, is there like the defining start here episode? I didn't really preface this question. I apologize, but does anything come to mind as like your favorite episode or one you thought you did a great job on? Or
I don't know. You know, they sort of have different feels to it. I always love talking to David and Scott and doing our little "They Don't Do That in Europe" segments. Those are a lot of fun. But as far as the interviews go, they're the ones that I am able to just sort of sit down and have a long conversation with. Some of those have been really, really cool. I even think like the one I just put out yesterday with Tobin. That he's somebody that, you know, we're always like every race, kind of like I've done with Molly. It's like we need to talk, and this has, you know, been going on for a few years now. That's the same thing that has happened with Tobin. He was in DC the past couple of days, was able to sit down and talk to him, and I think it was just a really, really fun chat. I think the first time I had Hyde on, that was always good because, I mean, as you all know, you can just say, hey, we're recording, and then really don't have to say anything for an hour and a half.
It's true.
Because he's going to fill the space. But those are those types of one-on-one conversations that I really like, and I really liked it to be that, you know, not to have too much prepared, but let's just talk, you know, and those I think go really well.
So we've missed one element, I think, maybe only one, but we've probably missed more than that. But one element that we haven't talked about is that you have this other side of your life where you've done some skills coaching, and you've written a book about cyclocross skills.
Yeah, you and I are the only Americans who've written cyclocross books.
All right.
Potentially releasing those books in the same month. Is that true? Oh, I thought there was it was really close.
I think there was like a year.
I was after Molly for sure.
Oh, I was trying to start an argument here, Bill.
No,
stand your ground.
Because I mean, to be perfectly honest, Molly was kind of a guinea pig for me and how I wanted to go about publishing my book.
Well, and that
fair enough.
We just talked about this recently, but that was, again, you know, now it seems like not a big deal to publish a book or publish a YouTube video, but both those things that you guys were doing back in that time was a different time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, and we wrote very different books, which is why we can still be friends. Yeah,
exactly. No, yours was a straight up narrative. It's good. It's great stories in there, and we just got into the nerding out about technique and preparing for a race, and hopefully everything you need to know as a beginner cyclocross racer, and even a more seasoned one.
And it's still available. It's on the Crosshairs cycling website.
Yeah, if you go to cyclocrossbook.com.
Oh, good domain.
Yeah.
So I figured we'd just talk a little bit. Do you have, or have you seen anything? You know, the classic thing is like that stutter step when people are mounting their bicycle to get back on after the barriers or after whatever they're getting back on. Seems like classic like problem people have is not committing to that and double tapping or stutter stepping. Do you have any things you've seen sort of help people get over that?
I think the main thing, I mean, we can talk about the technique to be able to get back onto your bike. The only thing I'll say about technique is go, you know, other than just watching cyclocross videos on how to do this, I'm not sure these exist. I hope they do. It's something I should look at. But I always think of it as a high jumper. And if you ever watch a high jumper prepare for what they do, it's very They map everything out. They know exactly how many steps they need to take before they launch to go over the bar. And they will do that at speed, and they'll do it over and over. And then if you ever go to a track meet and you look at the high jump pit, there are all these strips of athletic tape on the ground, a couple meters out. And that's where those are all the individual people where they're taking off from. So they know their steps are exactly how they should be for them to launch at the right place.
Right.
I say that because it's kind of the same thing with getting back on your bike and knowing that it's always, I take 3 steps, I take 4 steps, I'm going to do it in 2 steps, whatever it may be. Basketball, the same way. If you shoot a free throw at basketball, you're always supposed to have the same routine. I dribble 3 times, and then I shoot the ball. I twirl it up in the air once, spin it on my finger, and then I shoot. Exact same thing every single time. For me, I was told that, and of course, being the jerk I am, I would just do nothing. I'd get the ball from the referee and I'd shoot. That was going to be my routine. I do the same thing every time. It was always the same thing.
That might be the gift of height in basketball.
Yeah, right?
You just held the ball higher than everyone else.
Right. But that's kind of the thing. So one thing is just practicing the exact terrain is always going to change. So, that's going to come into play, but you're over that barrier. You're taking 2 steps, 3 steps, whatever it is comfortable for you. You're launching, you're getting on your bike. That's one thing. The more important thing is when you're practicing, tell yourself practice once and then mentally make a note to yourself, I'm going to do this again. I am going to do it at half the speed I just did. And then when you do that, make a mental note to yourself and say, okay, I just did it at half the speed. I'm going to do it at half that speed. And then do that 100 times. And I think that's where most people get in trouble and where these stutter steps start, is they're not breaking it down into almost a walk and just practicing. And it's mundane, and just practicing that motion over and over and over again, and then speeding it up from there.
I think that's great. I like that. I actually love there's 2 things about that. One, I love comparing to other sports and things, especially if people have any basis in that. So I like that you did, I think triple jump would even probably work, but your high jump or things like that, there's probably people that have some sort of sport that's similar to that. And basketball, I think, is a great one because you could have variability. You could be pivoting or something and then going in for the layout, right? And taking your 2 steps, because you only get, I think it's 2 steps in basketball.
Right.
And it's the same, but there could be something crazy happening before those 2 steps. And that's probably cyclocross, right? Like you might have to do something or you tripped,
right.
But then you're going to go, 1, 2, 3 up onto the seat, right?
The other part that I think is really important, and this is more a holistic approach to getting rid of your stutter step, and where I see that people fail in their practice and their preparation is group cyclocross practices, which I think are a great thing. And hopefully you are in a place where you have people that you can go and you can go to practice and you can drill and then you can do some race laps. What I've seen with a lot of these practice groups is it'll go a little bit like this. Somebody will bring their, PVC barriers, set them up. Everybody will start showing up, sort of half-heartedly run through the barriers a couple times. Maybe it was like, hey, let's work on some starts. So they'll do like a start or 2. It's like, all right, let's just race. Let's race. Let's do some hot laps. And
this is a parody video in the making.
And everybody wants to just do hot laps. And you're like, well, all right, but that's not really practicing. That's just, getting like a practice race in. And what I would recommend is, 1, do some practice sessions just on your own, or at least find 2 or 3 other like-minded people that you're going to say, hey, we're not setting up a course. We're not doing any hot laps. We're just going to come out here and work on our technique. And we're going to do it for an hour. And then you can, go on the road and do your intervals or whatever else you need to do. But let's just concentrate on those drills. And I think it is not fun. That's the thing. It's not fun. It's fun to do the hot laps. I mean, everybody wants to do that, but that's really not getting you better in the end. And it's really just sort of taking that step back and not giving into the peer pressure and saying, no, I just want to do these drills because this is going to make me better on Sunday when we race.
It's odd. I don't think it's a dichotomy, but it's definitely the thing that I struggle with clients. It's none of these people, or a few of my clients are, at the World Championships this weekend or are planning to go to the cyclocross ones, but, they're doing it for fun, but they have some sort of performance goals, right? And to sort of explain that, the norm for the best people is not to be at the cyclocross practice or the weekly mountain bike race or whatever. It's not that they never go, but it's not the norm for those people, right? If you averaged out what you saw.
Yeah, I've seen people destroy their races on Saturday because they went too hard on Wednesday at practice.
Yeah. Like I've gotten wrecked by people at Wednesday Night Worlds and I have nothing left. Like it's all left to the weekend. It's going to take me a whole week to get back, right? And Yeah, it's that start line energy, that, lack of a better term, but pulling the car off your baby effort, right? You only have so many of those in a season. And I mean, if you're going to do 12 weekly races plus, in some cases, you know, in the Northeast, people are racing double weekends. Like,
Right.
I can only imagine if you're 16, maybe.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, that's next. I had another thought. That's awesome, Bill. Thank you for that. So in relation to Svenness, I've always wanted to ask, and I've not been super successful over my 20 years of bike racing, but people like yourself, you know, mechanics would fall into this too. I picked Tom Hopper's brain a fair bit over the season, so that was a success, I guess. But you watch a lot of things, right? And I'm wondering, is there something that just, you see it every weekend, people doing like this same mistake, right? Like whether it's a line in the Svenness sort of thing or just stupid preparation stuff. You know, you've watched a lot of cyclocross races, like you say, laying on the dirt.
I think that a couple thoughts here. First off, I think that by watching the amount of cyclocross that I have, I've actually gone in the opposite direction in that, and it's good that this has changed over time and didn't happen when I was putting together skills drills and belly aches, because it would have been a mess. Even though in there, you know, I tried to stay away from saying this is the right way to do it. It was always, this is what we recommend you doing. You know, try this, see if this works. This seems to be proven. And over the years, what I've noticed is that there can be different ways to do this. You know, it used to be, I'm getting in trouble for this, is that, you know, you didn't want to put your saddle underneath your armpit. Like, it was always elbow out. Well, some of the greatest cyclocrossers in the world do it that way. And there is good reasons not to do it. And then the interesting thing that I found, and even more so recently, running these women's cyclocross clinics and having women instructors who have really educated me in why this happens, is that it's easier to lift your bike under your armpit than it is to hold it out. Some people don't have that arm strength, or, you know, and can't do it, and they're much faster doing it that way. It's like, yeah, you may hit the barrier, you may pop your saddle into your armpit, but most likely you're not. So do it that way, because that may be faster for you. And it's those kind of things that you're like, okay, we know we know these conventional wisdom things, and it's maybe breaking those things down and saying, all right, maybe there is a reason to do things a different way. So that's kind of what I've learned. The second, what I've learned from watching a lot more mountain biking, is that I think that cyclocross, as far as how cyclocross riders ride a bike, could possibly change to make them more efficient and faster. And the person that really has convinced me of this is Evie Richards. Because Evie Richards, and you can see it at World Championships last year, was just a muddy mess, and she was just, I mean, she got accused of having a motor in her bike. She was going so fast. And the reason is she races her bike like it's a mountain bike. She's always over the back of her bike. If you look at cyclocross racers, you look at all of the professional racers, especially in the men's side, they're all on the front of their bike. They're all standing up. They're all leaning over. They're front loading their bikes. And I think a lot of times that's sort of hampering their technique. I mean, they've gotten so good at it, and they're so fast, you know, that we can't really, who am I to criticize? But I just think I see her, and I see some of these other people coming over from mountain biking, and just how they rebalance their body on the bike. I think that there's a lot to learn from that.
I think those are good points. I think I really like the thought on the norms, right? There's ways that things have been done forever, which doesn't mean that's the way we should always do them. And, you know, I think with women and more people generally doing cross, you know, we have to be open that there's different ways to accomplish things. I definitely, you know, try and help people find other strategies, just so they have some range of motion with the armpit. But there's some people that it's like, you're accomplishing the goal, right? And that's, if it's consistent and it's smooth, that's awesome, right? But you get into the fight where, well, we're not getting over the barriers, so could we try another strategy versus the armpit, right? And to me, that's the better question is, okay, this person won the world championships. and never gets dropped in the barriers, it's probably not a fight we need to make, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
that being said, I still think the step through is dumb.
Well, and there's a lot of things. I didn't have the step through because I thought that we all had agreed on that, but but things like, I think you see in the U.S. at least, shouldering. You don't like. I feel like a lot of people are just suitcasing a lot more and pushing a lot more. And I don't know if that, like, disc brakes might be helping. Like, you don't care as much about your bike bunging up, and when the pits are frequent. I don't know. I
think that what it comes down to a lot in the U.S., and it's what you all touched on in your last episode with running for cyclocross, is that we don't have a lot of races in the U.S. where it is mandatory to shoulder your bike. You look at some of these, the European races, and the run-up is so long and so steep. There's no way you're pushing your bike up there. You look at some of these, you were talking about the 80 meters. You look at some of these runs in the mud, in the sand, that are so long. If you're not opening up your body, if you're not using that left arm to swing and be able to run with,
right,
you're losing ground. You're not as efficient. So shouldering in those instances is mandatory, and I think it's really the longer, harder efforts where it comes into play, and where we're just looking at these punchy, short sections that we have to be off our bike. It's the penalty isn't there.
Yeah, I noticed at Roanoke this past weekend in your coverage, there was a set of stairs that it looked like, a couple people were trying to shoulder, but then it looked like a lot of the front folks were just sort of suitcasing, and it was a long suitcase, but...
Yeah, and even there, somebody left a comment that, Mani made this pass on the steps because she was shouldering and the other person was carrying. I didn't respond, but my response in my head is like, Mani's just really fast on the steps.
Yeah.
I mean, she could be. It doesn't matter where she's with her bike. It's like that's just
she's run a lot.
Yeah, that's a skill that she has.
Which then again gets to, you can do whatever you want as long as you're not getting dropped, and it's not the limiter.
Which is also, we're having this conversation, and all of us would agree that in the end, though, you should find the best way, and this especially happens at the amateur ranks, just because you are fast through there, just because maybe you won a race by 2 seconds, maybe you could have won it by 5 if your technique was better. So it's not like any of us are saying just give up and do whatever you want. There are ways that you can get faster, but maybe just rethink for your own benefit what may be the best way, and it may not be the conventional way.
And just options too, right? Like in the gym, that's what we're often looking at, is like, it's fine if you can squat, but can you squat narrower or wider, or there's always other ways. And the more options you have, right, like if you get to Mount Crumpet or a long run or something like that, then you can shoulder your bike very smoothly and you don't get dropped. But if it happens to be a race like this one you just did, where it seems like most people are just keeping their bike on the ground, you can run effectively.
The other thing that we have in the U.S. that Europe does not have is that we have these August and September races where it's 97 degrees Fahrenheit out, and everybody has a water bottle cage on their bike.
Sure. Yeah, I guess
now that shouldering's harder when you got that water bottle.
Now that you got to have your heat adaptation and your cooling vests and everything, cross is changing.
Cooling vests have not made it over to the U.S. that much. I don't see them, which is just amazes me.
You didn't see them in mountain biking?
Mountain biking, I see them in the World Cup all the time. I mean, the whole
in Canada we use them all the time.
Yeah. See,
I mean, you got to have a budget. I don't have one, but people have them.
Yeah, like it's just a wave of blue and white, and you don't know who's who.
Last question. We have under a minute. Do you see the new UCI rule for cyclocross with the 6 obstacles? A few people have asked me. I don't have nearly enough knowledge. It seemed to me like it's not really an issue, but do you see it changing things at all?
Well, with like the artificial obstacle type
correct
thing? Yeah, I don't think it changes anything. I think that A lot of times, once you go through your walkthrough with your UCI official, it's kind of a negotiation. And we've seen year after year after year that the UCI is kind of a little bendy on their rules, even when they put them in. There obviously was a reason that they put that rule in there. I personally, I thought it was the Toyo tires, because that was just this
I'll link
artificial...
to your guys' episode because you do a good breakdown of it. But I just wanted to see if after the first race here, you had any other thoughts.
No, and I honestly, I think it's going to be really interesting. We know all these tracks. We've seen them year after year, both in North America and also in Europe. And it's going to be really interesting to see what changes are made. I just had a conversation with the promoter from Charm City yesterday about their planter, because that's something I'm like, oh, that's going to be interesting. And they're like, we're putting it in. If our commissary tells us, nope, that has to come out, then they'll change the course. But as far as they're concerned, it's part of the park and they're putting it in. So I think it's really gonna come down to interpretation. And I think we're gonna see a lot of people, yelling at Twitter that, oh, that shouldn't be in the race, or why'd they take that, that it's not gonna be something that's gonna be cut and dry.
Right. And the issue with the planter would be that it's man-made.
Right.
It's not a natural thing.
Correct. Yeah.
And it doesn't fit within, it was sand, barriers, or steps.
Right. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think it's just I think the ultimate heart of it is that they're trying to avoid just like 20 obstacles and it's just like a mini golf course, right? Like, I think.
Oh, for sure.
I think that was the goal.
Yeah. And people are all freaked out about, oh, you can't have a flyover because it's artificial. And I'm like, well, the rule is it's something that at the elite level, the top level, that they will be forced to dismount. So,
right. Yeah, I think you were right in that. That's sort of the key wording there. That's just like taking the course.
And I honestly think in for the UCI, they're like, why are all these Americans getting all out of shape out of this? We're just making rules here. We do it all the time. Why do they take these things and break them down so much? It's like, stop bothering us.
Having gone to a Belgian World Cup, I can assume it'll all just work out and it'll be a little more hectic than we're used to, but it'll all just pretty much be fine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, Bill. We'll link to all your key CX hair stuff.
Can I talk about one more thing?
Oh, 100%.
Because you all mentioned it in your last. I wanted to talk about running a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We did miss that question.
I did. We touched on it, but you didn't seem like. What do you think? So running in the question is, let me set it up for people.
Yep.
Should you do runs, like specific run training for cyclocross training, and that's without any commentary on like general health or athleticism or cross training. Just I want to race cyclocross. Should I do 20-minute runs?
And here is what I will say. First, I will say, if you all haven't listened to the episode before this one where Molly and Peter discuss this, go back and listen to that, because it's a great breakdown of all the pros and cons, and I learned a lot from listening to that. What I will add is a couple things. One is that if you've never run, we see a lot of people who race road and there's like right now they're still fit and they're like, I'm going to jump into a cyclocross race, and you've never run, even the little minimal running that you do in cyclocross, it is going to hurt like hell. If you don't just go out there and, as you all were saying, do a little jogging, do whatever, 20 minutes at most, even less, just so your body knows, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. Just be prepared. The second part of that, and I think the more important part of why you may want to put running into your training for cyclocross, is that if you do, and if you feel more comfortable running, you can take that off of the list of the things that you worry about for racing cyclocross. Ooh. Oh my God, I hate running. I don't like the running part. It's the worst part. Well, now you're running. It's really not that bad. You're only off the bike for this amount of time. I'm comfortable. I've been running. I'm a runner now. Look at me. I can run a 8-minute mile. Awesome. And you get there, and then that's not a stressor. That's not something you're worried about. That's not something every time it comes along in the course that you're like, oh, crap, here comes the running section. It's like, awesome. It's running. I do this. I'm a runner. And then then you can go worry about your stutter step or something else that you need to fix.
Yeah, I think we did, and you probably do this too, but like I'm riding my bike later in the day thinking about the episode or whatever, and then I'm like, should have said that. Someone's going to say this. And that was the one thing, was like, I'm coming from a position where I've always just been okay at running. Like, I enjoy running and I do a fair bit. And I definitely have that mindset of the second I get to run, if I can get off my bike, I always say, like, I'll gain several spots. Like, if we just all have to run or get on and off a bunch. So I think you're right. If you can gain confidence from that, or you enjoy running, like, that's a great reason to include it. I've also seen a lot of people that are pretty good runners and identify as runners, and they're not great at cyclocross. But
yeah, no, that part that you said is yeah, absolutely on point, in that whatever you may gain, and we talked about how the runs in North America are not as long as they may be in the, hardest tracks in the world over in Belgium, that the gains that you're going to get are not by becoming a faster runner. If you're already good, are not that great compared if you just work on your skills and your technique.
Right. Well, I think that's good. I didn't realize, I don't think we had any controversy, but that was great. That's a great addition. So that's CX Hairs on Instagram. Is a great place to follow you and see what's up. And then your YouTube channel will also link to, so people can follow all this coverage you're doing this year as well. Make sure they subscribe and join the thousands of people who have done so. Anything else, Bill, that we should link to or know about?
No, that about does it. CXHairs.com. That's sort of the landing space for all of this stuff. And I'm glad that we finally were able to do this. This was an enjoyable conversation. Thanks for having me on. And again, thank you for continuing to put out episodes. I love all of the diverse topics that you all touch on, and I think it's something that people should be tuning in for.
Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you for your help. And
yeah, thank you. And hopefully we'll see you.
Molly will see you at Waterloo, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Consummate Athlete podcast. You can check out my stuff over at theoutdooredit.com or by following me on Instagram and Twitter at Molly J. Herford. And you can check out Peter's coaching, training plans, blogs, all that fun stuff over at smartathlete.ca or by following him on Twitter and Instagram at Peter Glassford. And if you want to support this show and other awesome podcasts, please check out wideanglepodium.com for show info, other podcasts, bonus content, and to become a donating member so you can get all of that rad behind the scenes content and help keep shows like this on the air. And lastly, if you're enjoying this podcast and all the information that we're bringing to you every single week, do us a solid and pop into iTunes to leave us a rating and review. It takes you about 2 seconds. You can do it on your computer, you can do it on your phone, and it really helps us out. Thanks so much, and we will see you next week.